My fellow geeks of planet Earth, how the heck are you? David Franco here from daviddefranco.com with my likes and dislikes of iOS 7. Now first of all, before I get into this video, I do want to say I have been using iOS 7 for more than a week now on my iPad 3rd generation, as well as at least for 24 hours on my iPhone 5S Space Gray 32GB. Alright, so as you know, iOS 7 has been getting a ton of press, both positive and negative, which I feel the negative is a bit dramatic, in my opinion. So that's exactly why I'm making this video. I mean, I just want to get my thoughts out there, not in rant form, but in a way in just an unbiased form, if you could say it like that. And that is in terms of both likes and dislikes, so let's get into it. Starting out with my likes of iOS 7, I want to tackle the beautiful user interface. Seriously, iOS 7 is drop dead amazing looking. From the flat design, to the thin fonts, to the elegant animations, to the background blur effects, which I'm a huge fan of. That right there requires a lot of processing power. Just, iOS 7 overall looks amazing. Now yes, it might be a little bright here and there, while I can agree with that, especially on the Notes app and the Messages app. Yes, I do see what people are saying. But in my opinion, it's nothing to get up in arms about. I mean, it's not that bad. It's not like Fisher-Price colors. So I gotta say, Apple did a pretty kick-ass job with iOS 7 and the overall design. Is it perfect? No. Will they fix things over time? Yes. And let's not forget, half of the fun of using iOS 7 apps is the third-party apps, guys. I mean, the third-party apps, some of them out there are just downright amazing. For instance, last night I just updated, I should say, to the new version of Facebook, specifically designed for iOS 7. And guys, I gotta say, beautiful app. I mean, the app developers over at Facebook, they did such an amazing job. I mean, I was seriously blown away. I haven't been impressed by a Facebook app or a Facebook UI in a long time, and they really did their homework. From the beautiful navigation bar on the bottom to the blue blurred background up top, you know, the header/masthead, it looks phenomenal. And guys, honestly, let's just say this, I was squirting pixels last night. It was that amazing. I was just having nerdgasms left and right. The next thing regarding iOS 7 that I want to talk about is, well, the fact that it's smoother than expected. Now, by than expected, I'm obviously responding to all the drama I've seen on the internet from specific people. I'm not going to put out names because I'm not that kind of person. But I just want to say those people, I think, are being way too nitpicky. And obviously, I mean that with all due respect. We all have different opinions, we all have different expectations, it's fine. But I gotta say, guys, even me, I am a pixel freak, I am an animation freak, I pay attention to frame rates. I mean, I can definitely notice stutter when I see it. Now, is iOS 7 perfect in terms of animations? No. But is it pretty damn good as of what it is today? Hell freaking yes. I mean, guys, I am blown away by iOS 7 in general. I mean, I think it's very smooth, especially for a day one release. Alright, so obviously I am referring to my iPhone 5S. I mean, this thing should be optimized for iOS 7 from day one, and I gotta say, it does a 98%, good job, because like I said, it's definitely not perfect. But for what it is, this thing flies. I mean, iOS 7 feels so buttery smooth on this thing, and even on my iPad 3rd generation. And that alone is saying a lot, because I have seen so many people say, the iOS 7 experience on the iPad is severely lacking. Well, guys, I gotta be honest, I don't see what these people are talking about. I mean, it's not incredibly fluid on my iPad like it is on the iPhone 5S, but that doesn't mean it's bad. I have yet to have one bad experience on my iPad that's bad enough that makes me want to go back to iOS 6. In my opinion, it feels great. Could it be better? Of course. But then again, so could iOS 6. iOS 6 definitely wasn't perfect. But do you see these people complaining about that? No. Honestly, I think a lot of people just like to jump on the negative bandwagon and just follow the crowd like a bunch of lemmings. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's just, unfortunately, that's how kind of society is. People, for whatever reason, decide to focus on the negative aspects in life rather than the positive. And come on, you know me, I'm all about optimism. I am as optimistic as it gets. I mean, obviously, I'm not 100% optimistic. That's impossible. You need some kind of negativity in your life to balance things out. But in my opinion, iOS 7 on both the iPhone and iPad, the experience, as of today and as of this video, it kicks ass, and it's just going to get even better. Alright, so getting into specifics, I kind of went off track there. Let me talk about why I think it feels smooth. Number one, the multitasking UI, it just works and it just feels pretty much perfect. It's incredibly smooth scrolling through all of my apps that are currently running in the background. Number two, zooming into apps feels incredibly nice. For instance, when you tap that Facebook app or even something simple like the clock app, you get a nice zoom in animation and it feels like you're entering the app as if you're entering a new room. And that right there feels so genuine and intuitive to me as the user. And number three, that is pages within folders. Seriously, Apple, thank you so much for implementing this. The first thing I did when I set up my iPhone 5S is I put all the apps that I don't use on a regular basis into one folder, which would normally be split up into several folders. But now that iOS 7 supports folders within folders, or pages within folders, however you want to look at it, now the organization feels so much better, and I am incredibly thankful for that. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about regarding likes in iOS 7 is, well, it's fast as hell. Seriously, iOS 7 flies on my iPhone 5S. Switching between apps is a breeze. Launching apps is virtually instant. And just overall, the experience, like I said already probably a few times, it feels incredibly smooth. Okay, so now in an effort to keep things balanced, because I don't want people saying, David, you love everything Apple does. That couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, I do love Apple as a company. They're my favorite brand in this incredible world of technology. I mean, I love their products. I love their passion. I love their culture behind their products and just the design and usability. But does that mean Apple's perfect as a company? Of course not. You'd have to be mad to think that. So getting into my list of dislikes, let me talk about what I don't like about iOS 7. But of course, disclaimer, everything I am about to mention can obviously be fixed. So let's not focus on the dislikes too much, because you know me, I'm all about optimism. Dislike number one, and that's the fact that iOS 7, as expected, is definitely a little buggy. Now, this isn't a huge deal, but this is usually in regards to the animations being a little stuttery. For instance, when I do, let me unlock my iPhone using my thumbprint, which I love, seriously, that is pretty much flawless. It just works. I am blown away by Touch ID. Seriously, it just works. Watch. Boom. So I freaking love this phone. Apple did a phenomenal job. All right, so pulling down the animation for Spotlight. Actually, it looked pretty smooth there. But believe me when I say, now and then it does stutter. But do I fault Apple for that? No, I mean, that's honestly not a big deal because that has been an issue for me since day one of my iPad 3rd generation. Ever since they put in that Retina display, you've seen a slight drop in overall graphics performance. Obviously expected because the iPad is driving all those pixels, but then again, I never used a 4th generation iPad, so that probably could have gotten better. And something as basic as that, I'm pretty sure Apple can fix with a software update, so I don't see why people are obsessing over something as small as that. I mean, the functionality is there, so why complain about it? And number two, in terms of mild bugs, now this one's definitely a little bigger. I have experienced some random crashes in basic apps, especially such as the settings app. I mean, I could be going through my settings at one point, changing a bunch of stuff, and then maybe twice now, it's just crashed randomly. Now, is this a big deal to me? No, because I simply go back into the settings app and pick up from where I left off. But should this be something that Apple should focus on and fix as soon as possible? Definitely. I am by no means defending Apple in terms of crashes. I mean, crashes are never good. We don't want our apps or our phones or anything to crash for that matter. So obviously, yes, I am fully on your side, people who are complaining about apps crashing. Apple definitely needs to fix this. Is it a huge deal right now? No. I mean, I rarely experience crashes, maybe twice here and there. But still, Apple definitely needs to look into this. Alright, so moving on with my list of dislikes, let's talk about the inconsistent experience. Number one, and this is definitely a mild annoyance with me, is the fact that the keyboard from iOS 6 can still be found in iOS 7 apps. Now, this is only in regards to apps that are not specifically designed for iOS 7. For instance, going into Tweetbot, you gotta love Touch ID. Seriously, that is so cool. Going into Tweetbot, hitting new tweet, you can see right there, I don't know if you can see, you can barely see it, yeah. The new keyboard. The old keyboard is still there, right? But going into my Messages app, there's the new keyboard. You can barely see because it's so white. But that's kind of what I'm getting at here. Is that unfortunately you get that inconsistent experience where you're just getting used to the new iOS 7 keyboard. It's pretty much the same layout, it just looks different. But still, I like having consistency. I'm all about consistency. So when I feel like I enter an iOS 6 app like Tweetbot, I kind of have that feeling where I fell off track a bit, but then I get back on track when I get back into a true iOS 7 designed and optimized app. Now, is this Apple's fault? No, because obviously Apple has no control over applications like Tweetbot. That's up to the Tweetbot developers. And I have had word on Twitter or whatever that people said that the Tweetbot developers are working on a brand new iOS 7 version. It's just mildly delayed, so we should be seeing that soon. And now moving on with inconsistency, I do have to say, not all apps are flat yet, which is definitely very disappointing. And this especially goes for Apple's own apps, such as iMovie and Find My Friends. Now, obviously, this can be fixed, and I'm pretty sure this is a time constraint issue, because it's pretty much next to impossible for Apple to completely redesign every single app in time for the iOS 7 launch, which just was, what, last Wednesday? So yes, obviously Apple will redesign their apps over time. It's just gonna take maybe at least a few weeks to maybe even the beginning of 2014. Now, is this a huge deal? No, I mean, obviously the functionality isn't broken. It's just the overall user experience and user interface feels broken when you go from something like a beautiful iOS 7 flat experience to maybe that more glossy iOS 6 experience. But like anything else software related, this can obviously be fixed, so I'm not too upset by this. Alright, so rounding up the video, what is the verdict on iOS 7 in my experience? Well, it doesn't take a genius to realize this, but guys, I love it. Seriously, I am loving iOS 7 more than I actually expected to. I mean, aside from some of the gaudy icons, especially like Safari, I cannot stand that Safari icon. Does that make me want to downgrade it to iOS 6? Of course not. I have no regrets. I mean, I am loving iOS 7 on both my iPhone 5S, Touch ID is awesome, I know, that's the third time saying it, as well as my iPad 3rd generation. And I cannot wait to see how it feels and runs on the iPad mini with Retina display, which should hopefully be released in just a few weeks. Alright, so to recap, it's a beautiful user interface, it's an intuitive user experience, and honestly, I cannot imagine going back. Seriously, just turning on my iPhone 4S and looking at that iOS 6 user interface and user experience, it feels dated. Believe me guys, if you are not feeling iOS 7 yet, just use it for at least a week, I promise you. Going back to something like an iOS 6 device, you're pretty much guaranteed to feel, wow, I can't believe I used this. That's at least how I feel. And finally guys, please do not listen to others. Do not listen to their negativity. Because unfortunately, the majority of society, for whatever reason, doesn't like change. I love change, but whenever change happens, people freak out. For example, whenever Facebook changes their website, people freak out. Why? I don't know. And guys, honestly, the same thing goes for iOS 6 to iOS 7. I understand it's a different experience. I understand people's concerns and their annoyances, but still, just try it for yourself. And you know what? At the end of the day, if you don't like it, there are ways of downgrading. That is what's amazing about the world of technology, guys. I mean, if you don't like something, you usually have the choice of either downgrading or not upgrading at all. And that alone says a lot, because I always see people ranting like they're stuck in the world of iOS 7. I mean, you can downgrade. I mean, maybe not through Apple's official process, but I'm pretty sure there are hacks and workarounds to get from iOS 7 back down to iOS 6. But if you want my opinion, just stick through it. iOS 7 is a beautiful user interface. It's a breath of fresh air, and I'm glad Apple has finally taken a bold step and thrown something new in our faces. And obviously, I mean that with the best intentions. I mean, sometimes you have to get used to stuff by throwing in people's faces, at least in my opinion. So there you go, my likes and dislikes on iOS 7. Overall, guys, I'm loving it. I mean, I don't get why people are worried about the future of iOS based on early impressions of iOS 7. Worrying about the future of iOS 7 at this point, I think it's a little too early to be saying bold claims such as that. That's just me. I'm not looking to start a war. Just people are dramatic. People need to chill out, enjoy the iOS 7 experience for what it is, and just be grateful. And if you don't like it, downgrade to iOS 6 or switch to Android. Nobody's forcing you to use the iPhone or the iPad. And now guys, I am done. I do not want this video to be taken as a rant, so please do not take it that way. I just finally wanted to talk about my likes and dislikes regarding iOS 7, and well, just give my honest opinion overall. Alright guys, so let me know, do you like iOS 7? What are your pros? What are your cons? List them right below. I am really interested in getting a conversation going. And please guys, I just ask, keep it clean. I'm not looking for any wars by any means. I do not want iOS versus Android wars, or Windows Phone versus iOS wars. I mean, we all have amazing devices, and it's okay to like different devices. Just because you like something or dislike something doesn't mean I'm going to feel the same way. For instance, some people out there think Siri's a gimmick. Well, I have to completely disagree. I love Siri. I use it almost every single day. Seriously, I do. Mostly for timers. Watch this. Set a timer for 20 minutes.
Okay, 20 minutes and counting.
Thank you. And that alone is a killer feature. That is, I just love Siri. Alright guys, you know what? I could honestly talk about this for hours. I love technology. I love Apple. This is definitely my passion, if you haven't noticed by now. So I'm just going to let you go. Thank you for your ongoing support. All of you are awesome. And I will see you in Monday, which is my weekend vlog. Peace.